Episode 1. Castle Black. Beric, Tormund and Gendry warns Ed of the breakthrough of the wall on Eastwatch by the Ice Dragon. Ed prepares ravens for Winterfell. 3 horns sounds. Ed points out that it did not come from the top. Army of the Dead comes from southeast. Tormund and Gendry are ordered south by Beric. Ed stays with Beric. Beric says he still lives for one reason. He draws his sword which inflames. Ravens fly off. Gendry and Tormund are already riding and see the ice dragon burning all the raven in the air. Beric shouts that not all the dead are coming to the Black Castle. A larger army is further southeast following the ice dragon with the Night King. The Wights reach Castle Black and the battle begins. Bran is at the Godstree on the Weirwood. He asks the Maester how long he has been in vision. Maester says a few hours. Bran notes he has not seen anything. He says that he may have been thrown out of the vision and something is wrong. Jon, Daenerys, Jorah, Tyrion, Varys, Brian, the Hound and some soldiers ride to the gate of Winterfell. Several citizens of the north lift a moat. People look at Dany suspiciously. Jorah notices this and looks worried. Jon encourages Dany. Sansa, Arya and also belated Bran comes to the inside of the gate. Jon and his men ride by. Jon is happy to see his siblings, but on closer inspection he seems depressed. Sansa looks at Dany suspiciously. Tyrion realizes that the Northmen are reinforcing the castle walls. Sansa greets Jon. She asks Jon how he managed to bring Dany and Cersei to peace. Jon hugs her and answers bleakly that it's not that easy. Brian gets off the horse and looks at Sansa. The Hound gets off his horse and sees Arya. Jon hugs Arya and says, "So you did stick them with the pointy end." Both are pleased. Jon and Bran look at each other. Jon looks worried. Varys stands next to Tyrion and asks him, "This is your second time here, right?" Sam, with Gilly and her son in his arms, looks at Jon and the others from the faraway gate. Ghost stands next to Sam and looks at Jon. Sansa tells Jon that Bran's situation is hard to explain. Sansa says, Bran has visions. He can probably see things. Brian asks Sansa where Littlefingers is. Jon agrees and repeats the question. Arya answers Jon quite relaxed that she has executed him. Jon looks sad again, then Sam comes and greets Jon. Dany looks pleased. Jorah notices this and his gaze goes to the lords standing around, who look at Dany with disbelief. Jorah approaches Sam, gazes at Ghost carefully, and both talk about their last-ditch travels, and Sam then asks Dany how she likes Jon. She answers with a smile more than most lords. She grabs her hand on her stomach. Ghost approaches Jon and he delights to stroke him. Sam greets Jon and they talk briefly about their time where they were apart. Sam asks Jon if he really only had dragonglass in his fight against the White Walkers, as Sam read several times about Valyrian steel when it came to obsidian. Jon answers so far, Longclaw has been well armed. But with White Walkers the steel did not break when I fought one. Tyrion addresses Sansa and asks her how she escaped then and why he left her husband behind. Sansa answers that Littlefinger was behind everything and had similar plans with the Starks. But what works for the Lannisters does not work for the Starks. As a pack, wolves are the most dangerous. Jon asks Sansa why Winterfell is being prepared for a siege. She answers, "An old friend once told me that I have to be prepared for any scenario. Then we will not experience any surprises." She smiles and Jon is impressed. Jon orders everyone to gather in the big hall. In the Great Hall, Jon and the others gather with the lords of the north. Dany tells Jorah that the hall is very modest. A lord interrupts Jon in his speech about the threat in the north and asks how exactly the peace agreement with Dany looks like. Jon answers that the king of the north is now serving Queen Daenerys. Turmoil rises in the hall and Sansa looks surprised at Jon. Lord Royce asks Jon angrily why he has not learned from the mistakes of Brandon Stark and his father. The Hound stands next to Brian and says, "Why must everyone always yell at these king's gatherings?" Jon explains that he is obviously still alive. Jon also says that Dany not only has provided dragon glass, her armies and dragons to fight. He says that she has already fought, despite the threat. She sacrificed a dragon to Jon, her child. Lord Glover says he does not see any of this. Dany explains that she did not come as a conqueror and did not want to put a wrong signal. Lyanna Mormont asks Dany about the deal of peace with Cersei. Dany explains that the war has only a break. After the Night King is defeated, the war continues. Turmoil rises again. Arya says aloud, "We cannot trust Cersei Lannister. She lies to stay alive. I do not believe that after a common victory, she will go home and wait until your war continues." Jorah gets nervous and already holds sword hilt. In the side corridor Sam asks Bran when he want to tell Jon the truth. Bran says that maybe Sam has to do that because the time is just bad. Tyrion stands next to the entrance of this side corridor and looks towards the entrance and then looks back at Jon. Jon says he does not force anyone in the north to fight a war, which has nothing to do with them. But he would go to war for Dany, as she does the same for the north. Lord Glover asks if Cersei can be trusted and if she keeps her word. Tyrion says that they can, because even Cersei is aware of the threat of the White Walkers. Dany looks at him in surprise. Varys looks at Tyrion in surprise too. Jon loudly points out that there is no time for that and everyone should immediately order all armies to the wall. Lyanna Mormont and Lord Marndale agree. Dany says White Walkers do not argue in a room. They have only one king and they are getting closer. Bran is pushed forward in his wheelchair by Maester. Bran says she's right, White Walkers do not talk, they follow one king, the Night King. I know many here do not believe in what I can, but I saw him, I met him. First in a vision, then he found me. I saw him coming, he's always coming closer, we have to stop him. Dany persuades the lords in the room to fight the enemy together and to trust in Cersei's help. Tyrion writes a letter in a room. Jon is with Daenerys in the crypt of Winterfell. She asks Jon how many family members he has lost in the wars among the lords of Westeros. Jon tells her about Ned, Catelyn, Robb and Rickon. He relates that Rickon died before his eyes in the battle for Winterfell. Jon says, Robb died by betrayal. Unfortunately, his mistakes led him this way. Dany asks about Robb. Jon says, I heard that my brother killed the lords who betrayed him mercilessly. He has lost some allies. In the end, a broken oath cost him his life. Robb was promised to a woman, but he married another. Dany says he was betrayed. His allies have betrayed him and he has given them the right punishment. The traitors who killed him are now gone as I heard. Jon says justice does you good, but do not bring them back. We fought for our home and for justice for my family. By doing so I lost Rickon. Sometimes justice brings just more death. Jon looks at Ned's stature. Dany looks at the same stature and then her look goes to Lyanna Stark's stature. She asks Jon, who is this? Jon says, Lyanna Stark. My aunt. She was abducted by Rhaegar Targaryen, indirectly triggering Robert's rebellion. Dany looks puzzled and says, I heard a lot about my oldest brother, but basically just good. An abduction of a defenseless woman does not sound like him. Jon looks at Lyanna and then Daenerys. He says, doesn't matter now. They are all dead. We are alive. We are the ones who matter. She smiles at him. In a village near the wall, a naked young woman sits on a man. They having sex and he calls her a whore. She is proud and tells of a good-looking squire from the capital, who has satisfied several whores at the same time and so well that they did not want any money. The farmer sleeps with the whore. Just outside the village, a boy plays in a snowy forest. He sees blue eyes in the forest and as they move, he runs screaming into the village and shouts, "Father!" The farmer goes to his son and asks him what happened. He points to the forest. The farmer sees the Wights running into the village and runs away in panic. The whore hears that and gets dressed. The man wants to go back to bed with her, she beats him and runs out. She sees the farmer and his son running to a horse. The whore sees the undead run through the village and runs in panic to the stable. Most horses have already fled, the farmer has the last. She runs towards him and is run around by other fleeing peasants. A Wight comes from the side and attacks the son of the farmer. He dies and the father kills the Wight. He collapses next to his son's body. The whore runs to the horse and ascends. She looks at the grieving farmer and says, "I'm so sorry." She rides away. The Wights overrun the village and throw themselves at the mourning peasants. Jon prepares his departure. Dany says goodbye to Jon and says she gets the Unsullied, Drogon and Rhaegal. The Dothraki will soon come over the King's Road and she will meet them with the Unsullied to meet in Winterfell together. Dany rides off with escorts. Sansa tells Jon that she will stay here with Brian, as there always has to be a Stark in Winterfell. Jon says, I'm the king in the north and can go anywhere I want, but you're probably now the Lady of Winterfell. You have to stay that way. Jon smiles and says, you remind me of your mother, you've grown up. Sansa says, not my mother. She laughs a bit and says, get rid of the Night King. I have everything under control here. She smiles at Jon and he starts riding. Ravens fly south from Winterfell. King's Landing, Cersei receives a letter from Master Qyburn. She reads it and goes out of the room to the balcony. Qyburn asks what he says. Cersei looks from the balcony to the snowy city. She answers, all armies are ordered to the wall and thus all are defenseless. Tyrion is again a valuable ally, even if he has only sent information so far. He is not a Littlefinger, but a Lannister. Master Qyburn asks her about Jaime. Cersei says he is no threat. He is still my brother. Jaime meets Bran near Harrenhal. Bran says he probably does not need to expect a lock of his own castle in the face of literal death. Jaime says that's true because Jaime has finally left his sister. Bran is pissed but says pleased that was about time. Jaime rides off to the north and Bran follows him. Jaime tells Bran that they have to catch up with the Lannister armies to stop the Golden Company. Coast of Essos, Euron lies with Iron Fleet and meets commander of the Golden Company. Euron makes fun of the Golden Company with its elephants and beautiful golden armor. The commander commands Euron. Euron reacts in surprise. Theon mounts his ship near the Iron Fleet. He tells his men that he will find the ship and as long as they follow Theon, they will already see a possibility to attack. The troops of the Golden Company, including horses and war elephants, all go to Euron's ships. Commander of the Golden Company threatens Euron, he should do his job and not stand in the way. Euron smiles and says he has everything under control. Commander asks him if it's true that this Targaryen girl really has dragons. Euron says yes and says he has a weapon against it. Commander enters Euron's ship and he shows the commander the scorpion. Euron asks the commander if it is true that the Golden Company consists of knights exiled from Westeros. The commander agrees. Euron says, "Hey, I was exiled too. That makes us brothers." Euron smiles at him. Theon comes out of crowd of Euron's soldiers and runs screaming at Euron. Euron pulls his sword and defeats Theon in swordplay but captures him. Euron's men bring Theon to Euron's ship. Euron calls them to put him in his sister's hole. From a distance one of Theon's men sees that Theon's plan works and now has to hijack the ship where Theon is trapped. Yara will probably be there. Euron gets on the ship and says let's sail for Westeros. Dany comes with escort to White Harbor. There are the Unsullied with Drogon and Rhaegal. Dany goes to Grey Worm and Missandei. She asks Missandei if they have used well the time together. Missandei smiles at her. Dany orders all to Winterfell to travel from there to the wall with the king in the north. Jon arrives in Dreadfort with Ghost, Lords of the North, the Knights of the Vale and Jorah Mormont. Jorah says the wall is not even in sight. Jon says it's just a stopover. Jorah asks why children come with them. Jon tells him the army of the dead does not make any exceptions to the troops. But the children come to safe walls and will only fight from a distance with a bow and arrow. From afar, Gendry and Tormund arrive and call out loud, "Take cover." Jon takes a serious look towards Gendry and Tormund, and Jon orders everyone to take up position, all standing around the castle. Jon listens as Tormund repeatedly calls dragon. Ice Dragon roars and quickly a white fog arises on the horizon. The fog is approaching fast. Jorah says that makes no sense. They took months from Hartheme to the frozen lake. Lord Glover calls for Maester to prepare ravens. Tormund keeps shouting dragon. The fog reaches the troops in front of the castle. Jon loses sight of them. Jon says to Jorah the Night King might have followed a plan for every attack. The White Walkers always had the advantage. What if he needed it for an advantage? Jorah asks Jon in panic, what advantage should they have in waiting? The ravens fly off and Tormund calls in front of the castle gate loud, "They have the dragon." Jon is shocked and looks to the northern horizon. From the clouds comes the Ice Dragon. He flies over the castle and flies past the ravens heading south. Jon tells Jorah the Night King wants to go to Winterfell where my siblings are. Jorah says, the Night King wants to intercept Dany because of the dragons. Jon says thoughtfully, he may want someone else. Jon orders Jorah back to Winterfell. Jorah says it will not work. The army of the dead has already reached the gate of Castle Dreadfort. Jon realizes that the Night King might have been waiting to kill Viserion. Jorah asks Jon anxiously how he could have known Daenerys is rushing to help with her dragons. Jon answers Bran said he met him in a vision and through that he could find him. The gate breaks. Jon, Ghost and Jorah fight together against the dead and a White Walker. An unknown rider manages to flee from the battle and rides south. In Winterfell in the Great Hall, Tyrion and Sansa talk about Cersei. Bran tells the Maester to bring Bran to the Weirwood. Bran says to Sansa he did not see anything at his last vision and something is wrong. Bran is brought out of the room. Varys asks Arya how they have seen through Littlefinger's games. Arya looks out the window to the Godswood and answers that the Starks have learned from their mistakes in the past. Bran arrives at the Weirwood tree and touches him. He hears roar of the Ice Dragon. Sansa, Arya, the Hound, Tyrion, Beric and Brian of Tarth hears it in the big hall too. Everyone looks out the window. Sam also sees with Gilly out of windows in another room. On the horizon the ice dragon flies towards Winterfell. He flies over the weirwood tree and the Night King sees Bran. Bran sees the ice dragon and says, "I'm ready." The ice dragon begins to burn the castle. Brian says they have to flee. The hound barks at everyone, "Get out of here." Arya leads everyone to the stables. Sansa turns around. She says she has to get Bran. Brian follows Sansa and urges Sansa to follow her to rescue Bran together. She tells Sansa to let her take the lead. Sansa agrees and they go. A floor crashes through the ice dragon's fire. Brian chooses a new path. Sansa follows her in panic. Sam, Gilly and her son, Tyrion, Varys, the Hound and Beric are following Arya to the horses. Everybody gets up on a horse and they want to go. Arya asks the others where Sansa and Brian are. The unknown rider comes through the gate. The unknown rider is Beric. He roars, "We have to get away, reform in the south. The wall is broken." Arya says that Brian must be with Sansa and she is safe. Beric gets off the horse and talks to Arya. "I served your father. I can understand that you do not dare me after our last meeting, but let me serve your family again and let me get your siblings." Arya agrees. Beric pulls his sword, it flares up and he goes through the inner castle gate. Beric shouts after Beric, "What do you want to do against this dragon?" Hound says he has a bow. "I hope for him that his arrows have dragon glass tips." Everyone continues together. Beric runs over a balcony in the castle. He goes through a longer corridor and hears Brian. Brian walks in the hallway into a small hall. She tells Sansa it's safe. Sansa wants to go in, then the ceiling of the hall collapses. Brian sees the passage spilled. Sansa can still go back on her side. She reacts in panic, then says Bran to herself and get herself together. Sansa goes back slowly. Beric sees Sansa in the long corridor from the distance and shouts, "Lady Stark." Sansa reacts to it, then hears the ice dragon roaring. Sansa startled and tears come to her. The ice dragon spits fire on the castle again. The ceiling rips. Sansa looks up while running. The blanket breaks in and Sansa shouts, "Yes. I'm Sansa Stark from Winterfell." Sansa sees the whole corridor collapse in front of her. She says, "This is my home, I am." The ceiling of the corridor collapses and Sansa's voice falls in silent. Beric reacts in shock and gets angry. Arya and the rest are riding further south. The Hound says everyone should gather somewhere. Tyrion says Dany has to come from the southeast and they have to ride towards her. Arya looks absently back to Winterfell, looks sadly forward again and rides ahead in furious mood. Hound realizes that Arya is riding too far and tells Tyrion, "Then ride everyone back to the dragon mommy. I'll get the Stark girl and then we'll meet somewhere." Tyrion agrees. Hound rides ahead and the rest rides southeast. Beric sees the ice dragon through hole in the wall /ceiling. Beric sees a tower and walks down the hall towards the tower. Bran looks at the collapsed castle and sees the ice dragon and the Night King flying over the burning castle. Beric goes up the stairs in a castle tower. At the top he puts his sword in the wooden floor. He takes his bow and draws an arrow. He targets the ice dragon and shoots him. The arrow bounces off. Beric shoots another arrow without effect. He throws the bow back into the tower, pulls his burning sword out of the wood and screams angrily at the ice dragon. The ice dragon flies south and the Night King sees some riders flee to the south, Arya and her companions. Beric screams angrily, "Come here if you dare. Stop slaughtering children and fight yourself." Beric sees the ruined Winterfell and gets desperate. The ice dragon turns and flies in front of the tower a bit higher than Beric. He begins to spit fire on Beric. From the point of view of the Night King, he burns the tower. Beric keeps his burning sword in front of the dragon's fire. The dragon fire is blocked. Beric becomes more confident and roars, "You cannot kill me. I am the prince who was promised." Then the ice dragon stops spitting fire, hangs on tower, which is why it crumbles. Beric runs to the dragon head. Then the ice dragon eats Beric with a quick bite. The ice dragon rises again in the air and roars. From a distance the ruined Winterfell is shown.